Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of the Legal Paige podcast. Today we have a guest on, and I just wanted to let you all know how these guest episodes are going to work from here on out because there's about to be a lot of them. So I want to ensure that you're not only getting valuable business information and tips from these insanely talented people, but that I also bring in some legal stuff in true Legal Paige fashion. So after these guests teach on their expertise, at the end of these episodes, we are always going to get into some big legal things that have come up for them along their business journeys. That way, you can all hear my take on these legal situations and be empowered and more protected by the end of all of these episodes. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. Okay, I am so excited about today's topic, which is Pinterest. That's right. We've got an uber special guest, Vanessa Kynes. Vanessa is a Pinterest marketing strategist for creative small businesses. As a YouTuber, blogger, and consultant, she helps creative businesses grow by teaching traffic-generating Pinterest strategies to increase their brand visibility, book more clients, and ultimately generate more sales. When she's not pinning on Pinterest, Vanessa and her husband care for her 3 sweet daughters. Now, Vanessa and I met back in November at the Creative at Heart conference, and I just loved her vibe, her darling personality, and really her overall background. All in all, she's pretty much the guru of Pinterest, so I just knew I needed to have her on on my podcast, and I also just wanted to chit-chat with her about how she had started her Pinterest business and how she's able to live a little bit more of a nomadic lifestyle based upon her family situation, which we get into in this episode. So she's here to chat today all about Pinterest and how it is your guys' secret weapon to business growth. So are you ready to join our conversation? Let's get started. As a reminder, before we get into this episode, I am legally obligated to give my disclaimer. So I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. All legal information I talk about on this episode is intended for the masses and a large variety of different businesses. I am only your attorney when you hire me and we sign an engagement letter for me to work specifically on your legal issues. Please feel free to seek out another attorney in your hometown if you need specific legal advice or contact me for more information. Alrighty, here's the episode, friends. Hello, Legal Pagers. I am so excited you are tuning in today because we have a very, very special guest, Vanessa Kynes. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, Paige.
I am so excited you're here. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so glad. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh my gosh, the Legal Pages are in for a treat today because you guys, we are talking about how to use Pinterest to grow your service-based business. And Vanessa is the ultimate Pinterest guru. And I am just so blessed and honored she has given us her time today. So Vanessa, I know you, but I would really like you to introduce yourself to everyone listening in. Tell them what you do and why you do it, kind of how you got started, and then what kind of clients you serve now. I just really, really want people to know about the amazing Pinterest business you've created, how you're able to work remotely and be a mother of 3, which is crazy. You have so many things going on every day. And I'm just so proud of this business that you've built on, as a business owner as well. You're just like mom goals.
That's so sweet. Thank you. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I'm a Pinterest marketing strategist for creative small businesses. So I help creative businesses craft traffic generating Pinterest marketing strategies. And as Paige mentioned, I'm also a mama to three small girls, and we are currently living in Virginia. We are normally based in Washington, but we are actually moving to Alabama later this summer permanently. So we've been on the road for the last year, and it's been really exciting to think about how my business has grown and made me really grateful to think about the ways that having an online business allows you to basically say yes to things that being in a local based business wouldn't allow you to do so. So almost 3 years ago, I'm actually coming up on my 3-year anniversary. I contacted one of my best friends who's a really successful home decor blogger. And I was really looking for a way to create a little bit more income in our family's budget and still stay home with my littles. So I contacted her and basically said, do you have anything I can do for you? I have really strong administration skills and execution skills. And so I figured there was something I could help her with. And she was like, yes, I have all these things, Facebook and content writing and Pinterest management and all these things that she wanted removed from her plate. So to be honest, I knew nothing about those. I didn't know anything about I didn't even realize we were being marketed to on Pinterest. It's one of my favorite things to share with people who are Pinterest lovers, like in real life. They've never really thought about the fact that we're strategically trying to get found in search through keyword. So I took on all those things, but then very quickly realized that Pinterest was a powerhouse at driving traffic to her website. And honestly, it was the thing that was creating the most income for her. So for her, it would be ad revenue because a lot of it is just page views. And then, yeah, I just really love the way that Pinterest works. Pinterest is a introvert's platform. You don't have to be on Instagram stories. Like you don't have to be putting your face out there all the time. You can just literally be creating the content and sharing it on the platform. So for me, in the last 3 years, I worked really hard to create content and educational value for people who wanted to get started on Pinterest. I've been to Pinterest headquarters 3 times now, and that's been really exciting. And I've been able to interview promoted pin partners and people on the engineering team and the content creators team. And I've also done a few speaking events, and I have a few coming up this year with Paige. So that's super exciting. So for me, it seems fast. Like if you just came on the scene to Vanessa Kynes in the last maybe 6 months, you think everything's been moving fast. But for me, it's been really strategic in content building and educating and providing value for my audience. So that's like my big, huge tip for people to just be patient with yourself and keep showing up and showing value to people who want to learn from you.
Right. Yeah. Your whole business didn't just happen overnight. You said it's been 3 years in the making. You've worked really hard. I kind of wanted to go back to what you talked about because it's so important for people who are dreamers and trying to figure out like how they can get into the online world. And I love, Vanessa, that you just took the initiative, any of these stay-at-home moms that are listening out there or people who are wanting to get into a more, versatile lifestyle where they aren't working a 9 to 5 in a cubicle every day or something like that. I love that you were like, look at what you can create from home and working remotely. And you were traveling a lot too with your family. And you called it a nomadic lifestyle for a few years there. So yeah, can you talk more? I just wanted people to really hear about you reached out to this person and then you worked for this lady and you really found that Pinterest was kind of your niche. And how did you then grow as a Pinterest marketer? Did you start reaching out to other people? Did she find you more clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing I did was got a great website, and I got all the terms and conditions and all those things set up on my website, and really just started blogging about it because I wanted to make sure that I could recreate the traffic generation on a brand new website on my website that I had been able to do with her. That was really important to me to make sure that this was tried and tested. And I will say for me that doing that for probably about 6 months, and then I started engaging with people I wanted to work with on their social platforms and maybe Facebook and Instagram at the time, though it didn't look anything like it does now. And people started to go to my website and see, hey, like she knows what she's talking about. And then they were hiring me. Mm-hmm. So essentially it was basically having the value on my website and having that set up and people seeing that. And then as they hired me, it led to more referrals. Doing video marketing like YouTube led to speaking events, because I think those conference organizers could see how I was going to present myself on video. It would look like that live. So for me, it was a lot of that value and education on my website that turned into networking and relationships and then continued to grow. So like, that's really my strategy. And the truth is, it's not been fast. Like, it's been very intentional and slow, but I just can't imagine, I could not have imagined 3 years ago it would be where it is today, which really excites me about where it can be even 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah, you could have a whole team helping you, which I'm sure is kind of your next steps. We don't have to get into that today, but I was like, gosh, she's going to have like an army of awesome Pinterest marketers working for her. Yeah, I think that's really valuable for people listening in, because I always talk to all kinds of business owners across the United States. As you mentioned, I am a public speaker as well. So I go to conferences and chit chat with people about growing their businesses. I run an online mastermind and help all kinds of female entrepreneurs across the country with that. And the one thing I always tell them time and time again, and you're really mentioning it and bringing it home here today, is that it doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. And if you're intentional and you're strategic about the business you're trying to build, time will go by fast. And then 2 to 3 years from now, you're going to have so many clients raving about you, so many clients word of mouth pitching you to everyone else. And now, Vanessa, you have clients knocking on your door all the time, correct? Like, you're pretty much full.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's wonderful. And so I just wanted people to, we'll just wrap this up here. Vanessa started with one client, you guys, and she worked really hard and was very strategic in pushing herself out there. And the one thing I would say, Vanessa, and I've been watching you for a very long time, is you worked hard to become the expert in your field, and you don't become an expert overnight. And so I think that relates to anyone. Obviously, an attorney, like, I have to have a degree, but anyone like a photographer, like, they don't become an expert in their specific niche or what they're doing overnight. Like, they really have to work with many clients and just hone that in on their specific expertise. And same for a copywriter, or, someone who's running a Pinterest account, or a wedding designer, like a planner who's doing very specific weddings. Like, you might do all kinds of different weddings until you figure out what your niche is and what you're good at and how you're going to get that client referral base. So yeah, I love that. I love that we can tell people, like, you can dream big, you guys, but just remember, like, it's intentional, it's strategic, and we are better business owners because of it.
Yes.
So I am so excited today, because not only are we dreaming with Vanessa about this awesome business that she's built, she is going to tell you guys all of the things you need to know about doing Pinterest for your service-based business. And this is so huge, you guys, because she's going to talk about growing your business and little tips and tricks that you can do with Pinterest, kind of DIYing yourself, which is awesome. So Vanessa, let's just get into it. I want to hear why Pinterest is so vital to use.
Great. So I feel like a lot of people in the digital marketing world and the creative entrepreneur world, they've been really putting a lot of emphasis on Instagram and knowing that their audience is there. And I think that's great. I think Instagram is wonderful, especially stories, because it really kind of heightens that know, like, trust, and really getting to know the content creator. But Pinterest really is totally different. It's not a social platform. I mentioned earlier, it's for introverts. It's really designed for visual search discovery. So I always like to think about it this way. If you want to buy a pair of Nike tennis shoes, you don't go to Pinterest, you go straight to the source, Amazon or Zappos.com. But if you're looking for the tennis shoe trends for summer of 2019, you go to Pinterest.
Right.
You're looking for inspiration. You're looking for a solution to your problem. So if you're a service-based provider, you have the opportunity to create content like a how-to post on whatever expertise you have, and be able to be a problem solver for that person. And as that person clicks over from that pin to your website and reads your content, hopefully you're inviting them to take a call to action to your email list or to whatever more content that you have. You get to be the person that solves that problem for them. And in your mind, in their mind, you're the expert. They may know nothing about any other people who do the same thing as you. So I really love that Pinterest allows to, like, intercept those people's problems and to provide that solution. And they really do want to be be a solution providing platform. They don't want to compete with Instagram or the other ones that are basically people who are scrolling and just looking for some kind of entertainment. So Pinterest for service providers is super valuable. Obviously, you can use it to grow your email list. You can use it to acquire new clients. If you have digital products, you can use it to educate people on why they might need your digital product. But one of the coolest things I really like about Pinterest, and they've always been this way, is they're not afraid to share the love with other platforms. So we know on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, they don't want you to leave their platform. They want you to stay on. Right. Pinterest in 2018 introduced a way for you to connect your Instagram, YouTube, and your Etsy account to your Pinterest profile, so that if somebody engages with your content on those platforms and saves it to the Pinterest platform, you get attribution, which is a fancy way of saying you get credit for the way that content performs on the platform. So I love it because they're increasing the efforts of someone who discovers you on Pinterest. You click on over to their Instagram profile, they're watching your stories, and they're increasing those marketing touches so that they're going to go from follower to fan to customer. And so I love what Pinterest is doing in that area. And so those are the main reasons why you should be exploring using Pinterest. It's very unlikely for the people listening to this podcast that it's really underutilized in your niche. I think that food bloggers and home decor, they've been using Pinterest for years. They've gone through cycles of algorithms. But for service-based providers, it still feels really new to them. I'm still asked every single day, how do you get started on Pinterest? So I want to talk about the types of content that perform best on Pinterest. And it really is going to come down to blog posts or even video content that's embedded in that. So you don't just want to start pinning content that leads to your homepage or landing pages, because they don't do as well. So make sure that you're continuing and thinking about ways that you can provide content that educates your audience and provides value. So Pinterest really is about providing that value and sharing more about what you do. If you're a product-based business, you can totally use Pinterest in a different way by sharing how your product works, why they might need your product, or even problem solving, testimonials on how your product has really served other customers. So there's just a lot of things that you can really do on Pinterest.
Okay. So if I'm a service-based business owner, you're saying essentially, like, I definitely need to have some blog posts happening.
Yes.
Because that's a question I always get too. Like, where am I pointing people to, like I know how to use Pinterest, and I'm as a consumer and I'm like clicking on things that I find interesting, and they're taking me to like a recipe or like a food blogger's blog post on something, or my favorite home decor person. It's like telling me what all these items are and how much they cost. So for a service provider, I'm like, okay, what kind of pin then, Vanessa, am I trying to create? And then where is that pointing to? You're saying a blog post is probably the easiest for service businesses.
Yeah, because Pinterest users are, they're really in the beginning of that discovery mode. Again, they're kind of searching with those keywords. They're not quite as directive as maybe somebody using a Google search, or maybe they're just not familiar with you. Like they might be on Instagram when you have a call to action. And so that blog post really is, again, going to be providing that value and pointing them to exactly what they're looking for. It can be really disconcerting for a Pinterest user to land on a homepage because they don't really know what to do about it. They don't really know what action to take. So we're making it easy for them to show up on a piece of content that you've created and then ask them to do something. And that asking might be, hey, book a consultation with me, or hey, check out my products, or hey, join my newsletter, because we really want to capture what can be a very cold audience. Pinterest can create a lot of cold audiences, and we want to warm them up rapidly with some of our other messaging and communication.
Okay. So get some really good educational content out on your blog posts, and then start using Pinterest. Do they use photos? Do they use graphics? Have you found out like at all what's working best on Pinterest for service providers versus like a food blogger would have a really pretty picture of something you would make in your oven?
Yeah, great question. So the Pinterest platform really prefers a 2:3 ratio. So a 1000 by 1500 pixel ratio, essentially. Okay. And I've really found for service-based providers that using something as simple as how to in your title. So how to establish an LLC, for example, might be something you'd want to do. And you can have that because again, you're telling the audience that they're going to learn how to take action on this particular step and this problem they might have. I find that like really cutesy or clever titling that doesn't seem action oriented doesn't do as well for clicks. Or even like putting up a picture of somebody that you know is a really well-known creator and saying something cute, those don't typically get the clicks because again, this Pinterest audience is really broad, over 250 million users, and they may know nothing about you. And so one other thing I want to mention though, is you don't have to create just one graphic per blog post. A really important strategy that you can have to increase the clicks to your website is creating many graphics per blog post. You could even have how to on 4 different or 5 different Pinterest graphics and just change the background. Maybe use a solid color or maybe you switch out different stock photos behind those Pinterest graphics. But the whole point is that we're able to send all those different pin graphics back to one landing page and kind of increase our catching area, so to speak, or our search area to get people back there.
Yeah, that's so helpful. So to all of you listeners, those are usually called like split testing or A/B testing. And Vanessa's saying, don't try one way because you never know what a consumer is going to click on. And so it's easier for you to test it using like 3 to 5 different graphics. And then Vanessa, is it like you see which one is working the best? And then would you just continually pin that multiple times, or how does that work on Pinterest?
Yeah, so Pinterest really prioritizes fresh content. So pinning it over and over again after, let's say, well, ideally you would take that piece of pin and you would pin it to multiple boards that apply. So just thinking about like my own, I obviously create content on Pinterest, Pinterest strategy. And so I'm going to pin it to my main board, which is only my content. So Vanessa Kind's Pinterest tips. And then I'm going to pin it to at least 5 other boards that relate to what it's about. So I might pin it to a social media board, a Pinterest board that includes other people's Pinterest content as well as my own. I might pin it to a SEO board and then maybe pin it to a client or a creative entrepreneur board. So that's 5 different places that I pin one of those pins. Now, if you create 5 different images per blog post, and side note, they don't all those images don't actually live on the blog post. You can just include 1 to 2 pin images on the blog post and upload those separate pins separately. But if you have 5 different pins, that's 25 different pins that can lead back to the same piece of content. So if you see something do really well, like a certain pin or a certain blog post, for me, I sometimes just see it's a topic that really resonates with people. It's not so much always an image style, at least for my account. And so what I might do is go back to those popular evergreen posts. So posts that have been popular for a long time in the past, they don't even have to be that recent, and create new pin images that point back to that blog post. And I have seen a original post I wrote in 2017 resurge and get new virality on the platform early this year just by creating new pin images.
Oh my gosh, how crazy. So I'm just, like repurposing content, people. I preach this all the time because I'm like, why are we creating new content if other content was really valuable? People have like a 2-second attention span nowadays with everything that's going on in the virtual world. And so no one's going to remember that you talked about it, Vanessa, you said in 2017. So, or if they do, it was very valuable and they need to we're going to tell them to remember that again.
Yeah. And the truth is there's so many new people coming every single day into my website who've never thought about using Pinterest or keywords, I think is this particular post I was talking about. And so it's just, I've updated the post with like new information, which is good for SEO as well. But yeah, like you're basically capturing people at different points in their entrepreneur journey. And so it's a good idea to just keep circulating that good, popular content.
I love it. So I am so excited for everyone tuning in because everyone's like, ooh, this is really valuable. Vanessa's got all these fun things to tell us about Pinterest. I need to know more. Well, you guys are in luck because Vanessa has a Pinterest startup guide for all of you. She's going to talk briefly about how to really just get started on Pinterest if you're not utilizing the platform to your benefit as a service-based business here in a little bit. But I wanted to let you guys know that I'm linking this in the episode. So we will make sure that we link it in show notes and everyone can go get her startup guide, which is free and super valuable.
Awesome. So, do you want me to share with you more on how to get started with Pinterest?
Yes, please.
Awesome. Okay. So, the main thing that you need to do, there's a few little tasks that you need to do one time. And the first thing is you need to switch to a business account on your personal account or start a fresh account. This is a huge question I'm asked all the time. Do I convert a business account or personal account, or do I start fresh? I mostly encourage people to convert their personal account. And the reason why is sometimes it's harder for Pinterest to get traction on a brand new account. But if you've been using Pinterest for several years now, in any capacity that relates to you as a person, then I would really encourage you to convert that account. And what you're going to do is just go into the settings and switch to a business account. Another thing I want to mention is that on Pinterest, it's not an option. It is in the TOS or the terms of service to have a business account. But unlike other platforms where maybe you can stay personal, it's super important on Pinterest, and you get access to all kinds of things like analytics, and you get to claim your domain. So the second thing is you want to claim your domain. A lot of people get really stuck here. There's a lot of great tutorials on the internet, but you basically just have to grab a little bit of code and throw it into your header tag. So if you're using Show It, you can throw it in your header tag, or WordPress. You can also use Yoast to authorize your account. And what we're doing when we claim our domain on Pinterest is we're giving Pinterest access to see how our content performs. Did someone click over to your website and bounce right back, or did they love it and stay on your website a long time? They can use that kind of data and metadata to really determine what's going on. The next thing that's really important is to discover your core keywords. So I can't talk to you about that in super big length, but really go onto the Pinterest platform and start searching for the types of things that you think people are using to discover you or the type of business that you have, and start to make note of those and put them on a Google Drive or a Trello board and start to collect those core keywords. If you're a local-based business, make sure you're focusing on those local keywords all throughout your Pinterest profile and in your pin descriptions. So once you get that Pinterest profile optimized, you really just have to get comfortable with having that publish to pin workflow on what you need to do every time you hit publish on a new piece of content. So those are going to be those things like having Pinterest optimized graphics in that 2:3 ratio, getting comfortable with writing keyword-rich pin descriptions without keyword stuffing, and using a tool like Tailwind, which is an automation tool that allows you to automate this whole process. So those are the big things you need to do. It's a lot at first to get started using Pinterest strategically.
Yeah, there's so many just little steps in the process that it can be a teeny bit overwhelming, but I think you made that way less overwhelming when you were talking about it. I was like, okay, business account, got it. Claim domain, got it. Like discover your keywords, optimize your profile. And this is all in your startup guide, correct?
Yes, I talk about this in my startup guide for sure.
Okay, that's super, super helpful. So anyone listening that's like, I need a step-by-step, because I know all of you out there need a step-by-step sometimes. So Vanessa has got you covered. This was so, so valuable in terms of just basics, baby step answers, Vanessa, for how to use Pinterest really, really importantly for your service-based business. But I kind of want to always leave these episodes because it is the Legal Paige podcast. I think it's really interesting for people to hear a little bit about the legal background of these type of businesses. So the one thing I wanted to ask before we get started on your business is there anything in particular that people need to have, like in their terms and conditions on their website or privacy policy when you're using Pinterest at all? Do you know any of that by any means? Like, do clients contact you about that?
I think it's definitely important no matter what. If you're going to be intaking people's email list and using their information, you definitely need those privacy policy and terms and conditions on your website. So as you know, it's just one of those startup costs when you start a website to make sure that you have those, and even enabling GDPR things. So it's just something that I just decided early on I wanted to do right and have on my website.
Definitely. Yeah, that's how I just wanted to kind of round out the Pinterest talk here was say, if you guys are really going to start utilizing Pinterest, which I totally think you will after listening in, it's a powerhouse, like she said, at driving traffic to your website. Because you're driving traffic to your website, it is required by law that you guys have a privacy policy. This is in every single state it's required. So you need to have that on your website. And then I always suggest, like Vanessa said, some terms and conditions of use. And lots of people people are using Pinterest as service providers to build their email list. And if you're doing that, you have to tell them why you're getting their emails and then how you're going to use their emails and that you won't give it out to third parties, so on and so forth. That's all in privacy policies. As always, you can get those on my online shop. It's bought all the time because, as Vanessa says, it's just one of those startup costs when you put up a website. You just need to make sure that you are protected as a business owner. So make sure you plop up some terms and conditions and privacy policy if you're using Pinterest as well. Mm-hmm. But related to your business, Vanessa, we've got people, at the beginning of this episode, like dreaming up, oh my gosh, like I could really try this and use Pinterest to help my business. And maybe people are like, I'm not a service provider, but potentially I'm a virtual assistant. And like, I really want to start using Pinterest to help the companies that I work for. I kind of want to move over a little bit to some legal things that have happened to you while building your business, because some of the things that you've outlined here pertain to not just somebody who is a Pinterest marketer. It really pertains to lots of business owners. So it's a good way for legal pagers tuning in to know what operating a real business looks like on the back end. And I find that's obviously extremely important. And that's my entire goal as an entrepreneur and a lawyer helping other entrepreneurs. So I want to go over a few big things that you face legally in your business. The first, which I think is really important for people who are also living somewhat of a nomadic lifestyle, is dealing with your LLC when you're transitioning from state to state or you're moving state to state. Because we have lots of people that work remotely for that reason. Like they might not be able to start up a brick and mortar because they aren't as stable with whatever their family lifestyle is. Husbands in the military, partners having traveling a lot for their business as well, or so on and so forth. So can you give listeners like a little more information about that? And you don't have to go too into depth, but just something that you've experienced with transferring your LLC.
Yeah, so this year was not intended to be result in another move. My husband is an academic, so he's a professor. So he actually got a job offer in another state, which we weren't expecting.
Okay, so there you go.
The first thing really is, one, should I establish an LLC? And very beginning, we talked about those startup costs with having a privacy policy and terms and conditions for your website. For me, it was just really important. I actually am a very rule follower to make sure that I had an LLC. It's a single member to protect myself if there was some kind of situation, to protect my personal assets. So I'm sure that Paige has talked a lot about why it's important to do that. But the biggest confusing thing for me, and I am based in Washington State legally, is what to do when I wasn't establishing an agency in the state. So that was my biggest question. And so I had to actually get an agent within the state who would be responsible for receiving any mail or notifications from the state of Washington to that person. So I established that agent in that state, but I had to be really careful and make sure I didn't miss any of those deadlines for, I don't even remember what they're called, but basically where you reinstate your LLC every year and you pay your fees. So I think it's really important to not just cover your eyes and hope for the best, to be really strategic and get out your planner. And even if you have to make a note 6 months from now or a year from now on what you need to do. As we're moving to another state, I know it's going to be insane because basically I'm going to be moving my whole business. So I would love to hear, you may not know each state's particulars, but at least a workflow I can start to think about to plan for that.
Definitely. So for all of you that were just like, oh, did Paige talk about the difference between a sole proprietorship and LLC? I did, you guys. It's in episode 5. So go check that out if you need any more info. I just wanted to make sure that I plop that in there. So I have this question a lot. When people are moving or transitioning to a new state, they're like, do I just need to start my LLC over? What can I do? So there's multiple ways to do this. And it really, like you said, it depends on state by state laws. So usually you're registering with the Secretary of State. Sometimes it's different business agencies in the state, but 9 times out of 10, it's the Secretary of State. So you want to go to like Alabama Secretary of State's website because that's where you're moving to. And then you just want to see pretty much what's going to be the least expensive option for you because you're planning on moving there permanently. But if you just want to keep your LLC in Washington, you can still do that. You would just file as a foreign entity that is operating in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
So you want to you have 2 options. You can close and discontinue acting as an active LLC in Washington altogether and then just start up a new LLC in Alabama. But oftentimes that's actually more expensive than just continuing on because you're already registered in Washington. So you don't have to pay that filing fee anymore. You're just paying your annual report fee, to tell them that you're an active business. And then you can just, whenever, this is really good for, like I said, people who have, like yourself, a partner who has a more mobile business or career, like he might get a job, at a different college, or somebody who is married to someone in the military. This happens all the time. So I think it's easier to kind of have a home base like you have in Washington and then just register as a foreign business that is operating in the new state that you're in. For you, that's what most people would do. It's a lot less expensive and it's easier because you don't have to keep registering and deleting your LLCs. Sometimes though, if you're like super permanent, Vanessa, you might want to think about transferring your LLC, but I would always suggest, I'm like a caution person. I'm like, don't do things like rash and quickly just because you feel like you need to, because you don't necessarily know what your life is going to look like or your business is going to look like in a year or two. So start with being a foreign entity and then maybe relook at your status in a year or 2 years from now and think if, okay, we are super established here, it makes more sense to transfer my LLC over.
I love that.
Yeah, that would be like step number 2. But I'm always like, oh my gosh, people, we don't need to like freak out. There's ways to do this, but people don't even know that. Like people don't know that you can keep an LLC and register as a foreign entity, but that's the pricing that you're going to want to check on your Secretary of State's website. And just for everyone tuning in, like you have to tell your state, you're legally obligated to tell whatever state you're working in that is where you're doing business. And so you have to at least tell them that you're an LLC operating in their state, which is registering as a foreign entity.
Awesome. That's so helpful because I feel like too, it's something I probably would do, like make the permanent move. But when you first move somewhere, you don't want it to be like all the stuff that you have to do. I feel like that kind of buys me a little bit of time to really sit down and do that process correctly. But I can just file as a foreign entity this summer when we do make the switch. Yeah,
it's super easy. And just so everyone knows, you keep that LLC bubble and status, which is the most important thing to all of us.
Right.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about just before we end this episode is I found this really interesting as well. When you were like, I've only had like a few minor legal things happen with clients, which is honestly, I think the reality for most business owners. Big things don't happen all the time. They happen every day, like in a courthouse, but it's not going to happen 90% of us, right? It's going to happen to a small portion of us. But there are some little things that happen, especially when we're online business owners. Sometimes there's miscommunications or things aren't really laid out perfectly in our contracts. So it's rare, but I wanted you to talk more about some clients, maybe not, you said they don't sometimes return logins and passwords to their Pinterest, to WordPress, whatever it is that you need to get into, and content. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so important because if they don't get the content to you in a timely fashion, you can't pin for them and ensure that your workflow is exactly what it needs to be for all of your clients. So over the years, have you found kind of a way to really ensure that your clients understand your workflow process, what their obligations are under the contract when they're having you pin for them? And yeah, just kind of tell people like some strategies that you've used along the way.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, and I know that I'm working with really busy business owners. So it's not like they are just sitting around intentionally doing this. But I think
Right.
for me, it's been really helpful to get clear in both like my client experience and even my welcome PDF to say, here's what I need from you. But prior to that, in the contract, I feel like, and I don't know the exact verbiage because I don't have it in front of me, but Paige can speak to this, but having language that basically says that I need these logins and passwords by 2 weeks from the signing of this contract, or it might have a particular date in there. Because it becomes really difficult when you're trying to plan out your future client work of other onboarding clients. And you have this one client that you're kind of like sitting in a pause with. And so you don't really know when that information, those logins, which I mean, without a login, I can't really do anything, are going to pop up. And they might hit at a time when you had planned with another client to have an onboarding experience. So I think for everybody, it's just really helpful to have a clause like that in your contract to be able to protect you, but also give you confidence that you can go back to your client and say, hey, I just want to make a note of this. You agreed to this contract and this is my policy. So I need these things to be able to move forward. And so again, having that contract is just so important. It's great to have a great relationship with your clients, but they really do just kind of set expectations for everybody as you begin to work together.
Totally. You couldn't have really said that any better. So good job. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate. So Vanessa, it's probably like a limitation of liability or duties of your clients during the onboarding process or some type of clause like that, where you're not responsible for untimeliness in the fact, if your client were to not be able to get something to you that's necessary for you to perform. So that would be kind of the verbiage that you would use. You could have it in various parts of you don't want to have it multiple times, but it could go in certain clauses. It would just kind of depend on how your contract is laid out. But for you guys, I just wanted to point to what Vanessa said on communication with your clients about contracts. So lots of us just have contracts and they may have this verbiage in there that's like, you as the client are responsible for getting this to me in a timely fashion. And if not, then I might not be able to pin on time. You want to be able to point your clients to those sections in your contract when you are sending it to your clients. And Vanessa was saying, she not only sends the contract, she's pointing people to certain clauses and just reiterating the fact of what that clause means in layperson terms. Like, please make sure, again, this was in my welcome packet that I sent to you, but you really need to ensure that you get this to me in a timely manner. So she is like step-by-step process, systemizing her onboarding process for clients. And when you are a proactive business owner like that, you are protecting yourself legally. You're less at risk in the future. And so I think that's a great workflow process that you have, Vanessa. And it's really important for anyone that has very specific clauses on what your client's duties are as well. So yeah, I think that was great. Communication with your clients about your contracts is key. I talk about this all the time, but we don't just send our contracts to people and are like, sign and pay, thank you. You want to protect yourself. You want to be the better business owner. You want to be proactive and point out what's really important to your clients, like what their obligations are, what your obligations are. Make them feel safe and comfortable signing a contract with you, because oftentimes, you guys, we are signing contracts every day in the online world, and you're updating things on your app. You're signing a contract, and we just often scroll through. And that is how we are mentally trained to sign contracts online, is just scroll through. And so when you're pointing things out, it makes it a lot better for you risk-wise and protects you. So Awesome. This was such a phenomenal episode. We are wrapping up, Vanessa. I'm sad because I love talking to you. I just would talk about Pinterest all day long because I love Pinterest. I need to utilize it more in my business. So I'm going to heed your advice and do all these things. I wanted to tell people where to find you. Can you let people know where you're at?
Yeah, so it's easy. It's like my name across every platform. Vanessa Kynes, Kynes, at Instagram, on Facebook, obviously my website, vanessakynes.com. And Paige mentioned that I have a Pinterest startup guide, and I also released a course called Pin Progress. So if you're feeling like the Pinterest startup guide has made you really want to dig into Pinterest more, I have that as well.
Perfect. You guys, we will link all of these in the show notes. So it's super easy. I will link them in all of my posts as well when we promote this episode. So it should be pretty easy for you to find. As always, if you have questions, I can get you over to Vanessa as well. So make sure you go follow her, Vanessa Kynes, Kynes, on all of her platforms. Vanessa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was so fun to come on.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.